So if you're doing regular one-on-ones, like I talked about in the last video, the next set of meetings would be your actual team meetings. And I would hold a weekly team meeting, last about an hour, just for updates. Now, what do I mean by updates? Well, what I started to realize was that when I was doing one-on-ones before I started this new schedule, I would hear updates and someone would tell me something, and then I'd realize I have to tell the other two people or one other person that this is happening. And so what I started realizing was I'm the hub of the information, and then the other people are missing information because all the information came to me but not to each other. So instead, I changed my team meetings to be updates to not only just to me, but to each other. So whenever our team got together, we would update everyone in the meeting about what's going on, which meant that it started creating synergy in the team because they all knew what each other was working on, and then they started thinking about how they could help each other. The problem that arises with this kind of meeting, inevitably, when people start talking to me about it, is they're concerned that this meeting is going to be 5 hours long. And I understand the problem, which is why I'll tell you about the next meeting and explain how that works at the end of this video. But here's what we did. We came up with a system that actually set people up to have to be extremely prepared when they came to the team update meeting. We called it, at that point, we called it 7 and 7. We had 7 people who had to provide updates. They got 7 minutes each, which means if you're doing your math, 7 people, 7 minutes, 49 minutes. We were finished in under an hour. You say, well, how does that work? Well, if you know you only have 7 minutes to present, you're only presenting the highlights and the important things because you know next week you'll have more to present. And because you know that if you need more in your 7 minutes on a particular topic, you can actually have a project meeting, which is the next meeting that we're going to talk about in the next video. So you don't feel the pressure of having to get everything done in 7 minutes, but what it does, it sets up the team to have heard all of the highlights of everything that's going on in that particular week, what you've accomplished from the last week to this week. 7 minutes times the number of employees you have. Now, I usually say that I don't think it's wise for a director or for a leader or for a manager to have more than 8 direct reports. It's just a lot of people to manage and think about. And so that's where you wind up getting strata and different ways of working. But usually my suggestion is that a direct report team should consist of no more than 5 to 6 people. It can go to 7. I've done it with 7, but 5 to 6 in my experience has been the ideal number of direct reports for any leader or manager. So that means you could go to 8 minutes if you had 5 to 6, but 7 seemed to work really well. 7 and 7 did something really interesting with my team though. Some weeks, some of them didn't need 7 minutes. They only needed 3. And they started pre-planning before the meeting to give minutes. I'm going to give 3 of my minutes or 4 of my minutes to one of these other people because they said, actually, I need like 9. Good. So they worked out ahead of time who needed this much time in this meeting. That structure always kept the meeting under an hour. We got through all of our business because we turned a clock on. Now you say, well, what happens if you get past the 7 minutes and the person's not done? Then you ask them which one of those things needs to be spun off into a project meeting. The project meeting can be much more specific and go into much greater detail, and we'll talk about, like I said, that next. But realistically, after about 3 or 4 meetings, the team got in a sync. It took a couple meetings to kind of get used to the process. But after that first 3 or 4 meetings, they got in sync and they started realizing it's okay if I don't have time to talk about this because I can just schedule a project meeting. You need to keep them on time. If you give them 7 minutes, say, okay, your 7 minutes is up, final thought, we're moving on to the next person. The leader needs to be the timekeeper. Now, you can let somebody else keep time if you want, but it's more helpful if you're saying, I'm going to make sure that we all stick to time so that we all get out of here on time. It also creates an equality among every single person sitting in the room to know that they all got the same amount of time if they desired that. Which brings me to my final point. in this meeting, if you're running the update meeting and you've assigned everybody 7 minutes, unless you have something that has to go first, realistically, you need to take 7 minutes as well. You need to take the exact same amount of time that they need to take. And you say, well, wait a second, I have some more important things to talk about. Then schedule a project meeting. Schedule a project meeting, even if it has to be with the whole team again, it's fine. But in the update meeting, everybody sticks to their time so that everybody prioritizes exactly what they're saying to everybody else in the room. Don't let them go over time. Stay on time. Make sure they're all treated equally and fairly, and make sure that they learn to prioritize, which, by the way, as a skill, will benefit you as a leader and a boss over time to know I can find out the big rocks, the big picture things that are going on from my team in a timely fashion. And I've already had my one-on-one, so I know how they're thinking and feeling about this as well. Now, everybody knows what's going on, and I know the obstacles and roadblocks, and I can begin working with them as a team to actually accomplish all of the goals that we've set for our team in this particular quarter or this particular year.